Hey there, Michael. It's been a little while, but I've been wanting to talk to you about something. I've actually wanted to talk to you about the conversation that we had maybe a week and a half or almost 2 weeks ago. Actually, 2 weeks ago tomorrow. But I really wanted to talk to you about it, and I felt like it's probably easier to talk to you on Marco Polo as opposed to talking to you on a video call. Um, Being completely transparent, the conversation that we had that started out talking about the death of George Floyd, I really didn't want to have that conversation with you. And anytime the topic came up about, the social unrest going on, I basically listened and didn't respond, nodded and didn't respond. And there's a reason for that. Um, I feared having that conversation with you, like I feared having that conversation with a few other people. And to be honest with you, like many Black people fear having with other people that don't look like them. And the fear is that they won't be heard. The fear is that whatever they're sharing in regards to race is going to be minimized and marginalized. So, with the discussion groups that I've been a part of, I think the best part about all of them have been people are saying that they're feeling heard for the first time. One of my several friends actually from, throughout the Coast Guard units in the Coast Guard, several units, I've had people reaching out to me. Maybe they've seen my post on Facebook, but they've said, I've started reaching out to my friends of color to ask them, how are you? How are you feeling? How do you feel being the only Black person here? And, and just candid conversations that normally would not have been had. And I'd say 100 out of 100% of them have said, no one's ever asked me that. Thank you so much for asking. So, because it is a risk. It's a risk on both sides. It's a risk. It's uncomfortable. And honestly, I didn't want to have that conversation with you because I feared how you would respond. And unfortunately, you responded the way I feared you would. It's very difficult to talk about some of the things that you've experienced and some of the things that you've seen, especially when these aren't things that a lot of people that don't look like you experience on a regular basis. And one of the things that I've been learning over the past month is that oftentimes when people not of color have not experienced these things, especially males, based on, some of the things that I've been, just researching and checking out, is that there's an understanding that there's an idea that people aren't having different experiences than we're having. Women a lot of times have a different experience. Minorities have a different experience, and men don't. A lot of white males don't see that. I've seen it a lot of times in the Coast Guard as well. And I jotted down a couple of notes because I didn't want to forget anything. But also, when I was talking to you, I don't know how much you remember about our conversation, but we were talking about sameness, like-mindedness, things that are safe. And when you said, so what have you been up to? And inside, I just kind of felt just a kind of a gut feeling that, okay, I'm going to take a chance and I'm going to tell him exactly what I've been up to. And no sooner did I get part of it out of my mouth, you immediately jumped in. I didn't even get to finish my sentence. And you jumped in and you said, we need to stop living. People need to stop living in the past. And that's a judgment that what you didn't even know what I was talking about. You didn't even know the details. And you said people need to stop living in the past. And so I'm thinking, who needs to stop living in the past? I need to stop living in the past. I just said what I was trying to say what I was up to in relation to George Floyd's death and these virtual discussions. And you know, and it was a judgment. I felt an unfair judgment, to be honest with you, because you didn't give me a chance to tell you fully, you know, what I had been up to. And then you made the statement that, you know, that a lot of people are being negative just because of the death of George Floyd. And I asked you, I said, Michael, did you even hear how my conversation started? And you said, yes, I did. And I said, well, how did I start it? And then you went on to something else. You never responded to that question. And the very first thing that I said when you asked me what I had been up to, I said, you know, I've been a part of a lot of these discussion groups that have come out of the tragic death of George Floyd. But the thing that I love about these discussion groups is so much positive is coming out of them, you know. And so I felt like for you to say, make that blanket statement, I just didn't feel like it was a fair statement, you know, because I wasn't being negative at all. As a matter of fact, I've been initiating with the support of my admiral, who is, you know, big man on campus across 8 states, and the chief of staff and all of them, because they see the value, and they see not only the value, but see how important it is, and the positive, overwhelmingly positive responses that have been coming out of it from Black, white, Latino, Asian. It's been beautiful, you know. It's like, you know, beauty coming out of ashes, you know. The Bible says that God can restore what the locusts have eaten away. The locusts come in and destroy everything, but God can restore it and make it beautiful. You know, he can bring good things out of a bad thing, basically, is what I'm saying. And so, and then you had mentioned, you know, we like to live in the past. You know, people are living in the past, is what you said. And I'm thinking, I haven't even shared my story. Like, I'm trying to tell you about me, but you're trying to tell me about people. I don't know if people include me in my story or if you're talking about something else, but either way, I'm absolutely not being heard. And so that was the fear, that my experiences that I was trying to share were going to be minimized and marginalized because they weren't your experiences. And because you hadn't seen those things, I felt like those things couldn't be happening. Those things were a long time ago. And I'm not sure if you remember in our conversation, but I've been in the Coast Guard for 33 and a half years. And sadly, even as a Command Master Chief, the most senior enlisted position that I could be in, I've seen things even at my level while I'm in the position that I'm in now, and primarily microaggressions. And when I even gave you an example of some years back with my roommate, basically saying that, you know, why are Black people the way they are? But Rashawn, she's not like that. She's an exception to the rule. That was a very hurtful thing that she said to me. She relayed to me from her boyfriend, thinking that she was complimenting me. But when I told you that, you laughed at it, and that made it more hurtful. And you said, people are just ignorant. You know, again, marginalizing my experience. That's how I felt. And, you know, and that's kind of almost a script of what often happens when, you know, Black people of color, try to share their experiences. That's why most of the time they don't, unless they get a feeling or someone approaches them that seems to genuinely want to hear. And one of the things that I didn't say, actually, I'm not sure if I got a chance to say it at all, or if you heard me, but a young lady had reached out to me maybe a few days after everything happened. And she basically talked about how sick she was at seeing the tragic death of this man. and George Floyd. And she said, but I'm sure it probably doesn't even begin to compare with how you're feeling. And she says, and I just want to know, I just wanted to reach out to you. I don't know if you're going to take offense to me reaching out to you, but I just felt like I needed to reach out to my friends of color just to see how they're doing, see if they're okay. Are you okay? Can I listen? Do you want to talk? How are you feeling? And I cried when I read that text message because it was so beautiful. And I thought, here's somebody that genuinely cares and wants to know how I'm feeling and if I'm okay. And a lot of times that's all people want. People that look like me, that's all they want, is for someone to validate that the things that they've seen, the wrong things that they've seen, the wrong things they experienced actually happened. And that's what I was hoping. And unfortunately, I hung up the phone feeling, feeling like I wish I had never said anything. And a lot of times I think with African American people, they try to keep the conversation to sameness and like-mindedness because the fear of being unheard and being marginalized, because it's almost like you're being hurt all over again, and like I said, I mean, I've chastised my daughter many times for listening to some of her friends that I think can be very ignorant with the things that they say. And I tell her, you don't say anything about anyone unless you can back it up. You don't put a label on someone else other than yourself unless you can back it up. And I've just learned in my position that you have to be open. You have to be neutral as much as possible. However, when right is right, you need to speak up, speak truth to power. And when wrong is wrong, you need to be willing to do the same. And so for me, with the death of George Floyd, I can't tell you how many tears I've shed. And I'm really trying to examine myself and say, why am I shedding these tears? And then I realized I'm not just shedding tears because of George Floyd's death. I'm shedding tears because of all of the injustices that I've seen over a lifetime of 50 plus years, and things that I've seen in the news, things that I've seen in my neighborhood, things that I've experienced myself. Friends have had experiences and their experiences. And if anything, George Floyd's death was just the straw that broke the camel's back. And so I, again, have thoroughly enjoyed the conversations, the planned group discussions that have come out of it, because people are feeling heard for the first time. Oftentimes they're being heard for the first time. In addition to that, in some of the circles that I've been in, and oftentimes with people that don't look like me, and we're all open, we're all learning, we're all respectful, and it's mutual giving, but it's also people listening, people listening that have never had to deal with these things before, didn't even know a lot of these things even existed. And if anything, I'm sharing this with you, Michael, because I love you. We've been friends for a long time. And I feel like I wouldn't be a good friend and I wouldn't be a true friend if I didn't tell you that I was hurt and disappointed when we ended our conversation the last time. And I feel like with any of my friends, if they walked away feeling a certain way, I would expect them to be completely open and honest and tell me as well. And they're not telling me for any other reason than because they love me and they care, and they care and value the friendship. And that's why I'm sharing it with you. But I do want to go even a step further with you. I have a video that I'm going to send you. I've been a part of I've been a part of many, but one of them is primarily males. I organize the group, but primarily males, primarily white, a few blacks, and that's it. We met a couple weeks ago and had a discussion on this video, and it was just great. It was awesome. But I would really love for you to not only watch the video, but maybe even watch it a couple of times, and try to, and I say this only because sometimes it's difficult to, listen to some things, but if you could do me the favor of prayerfully listening to it, praying before you listen, praying that if there's anything that God wants you to see, that he'll give you the ears to hear and the eyes to see. I do the same thing for myself. I even prayed before I started leaving you this video message. So I just encourage you to listen to it and be open if you could, because I think if you are, I think you're going to gain some nuggets, some fruit that can produce some amazing things. Because one of the things I tell my daughter, as well as some of the folks that I do leadership discussions with through the military, is for myself, my hope is that I will remain teachable, and please don't take that the wrong way. I'm speaking of myself. My goal is to be teachable wherever I go, because even with some of these junior guys that come in the Coast Guard, I feel like no matter how junior you are on the spectrum or senior you are on the spectrum, we can all learn from each other, but we can't learn if we're not teachable. So if we start pulling those, walls up. And so I fight to keep those walls down as much as possible so that I can continue to learn and grow. So that's why I said that. And again, that has nothing to do with you. It just, we miss out on opportunities when we kind of have our guard up. And I say that because I've done it more than once, unfortunately. But anyway, I do love you, Michael, and I'm sharing this with you because I do. And I'm going to send you this video link. I'm going to send it to you on email. Or email. I'll send it to you on text as well as Messenger. I'm going to be running around for the rest of the day. So anyway, I just wanted to share that with you before too much time got away, because I've got a laundry list of things to do. So anyway, take care, and I'll talk to you later. Okay, bye-bye. Mwah.